getting into something really fucking deep today. Welcome to the Shameless Death podcast. This episode is called Moral Matters. It's our pilot. It's going to be a shit show. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we're going to discuss these 7 grandfather teachings. Those are big universal lessons, but we're going to look at them through the lens of our messy modern lives.
And
We're talking like respect, love, courage, all that good stuff. But let's be real. No, you fucked that one up.
It doesn't feel it.
I know it does not feel legit. I know.
No, it's not. It's like relax.
Everything's gonna be fine.
Meg's in the fucking horny zone, so she's like.
I'm so glad this is being recorded.
You're just ready to pounce.
To be fair, Meg just got married, so we're all a little distracted.
This is why I don't blame it. So we have that. We have glowing. You're always glowing stuff. If fucking
we should focus on love today.
Squirrely, that's okay. We're all squirrely.
We are indeed.
You know?
So how often do you guys think about these things?
Morals and integrity. Often.
More.
Yeah. Often. I would say often in everyday life. That's why I always say make good choices. Because that's fundamentally how we are as human beings, whether we do right and wrong, if we're trustworthy, if we meet expectations in our daily life, society, friendships, relationships with others.
Love. Yeah, the world is
on all the love.
Everything right now, it's lacking.
Agreed. I think the world is lacking in a lot of morals.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I agree so much.
Now, would we think that it's based off of what we see and what is like distributed to us by social media, by politicians, by people we respect within our communities, by doing the right
Social
thing?
Social media is distracting from, your base.
Absolutely.
Get back to it, like kindness and loving each other, like it's just lacking, and it shows. You can feel it.
Shows.
Well, morals give the foundation on how individual societies demonstrate right and wrong. So it guides behavior and interactions with others in different ways and promotes in ways, right, of cooperation and morality, and helps establish rules.
They're not teaching that, though. The generations aren't coming up with any of it.
Exactly. Like
that's very true.
In schools, the kids are just there. They're like robots. They're not manners. If they act up, they'll send the kids home. They're not teaching them that stuff.
Yeah.
So do you think the fundamental lacking is like the teachers, the stability within the school system, and more of the politics that were brought in to like
I feel
push our society in a different direction?
Home life is too busy. They got the parents too busy. So they can't teach, and the teachers aren't teaching it. I wasn't raised like that. I don't even know if that's just how it was. I respected people. If I acted up, I guaranteed wouldn't do it again if I did something bad,
There was repercussions and consequences when we were younger.
But I would never disrespect someone older than me. I had manners. I wasn't a little shit, until I got
not like these little fuckers
older.
Today.
Until I got Amanda's messaging. Can we pause?
Yes.
So you would say that it's like a social coercion being pushed into a direction or a pull. So
well, I think a lot of what Heidi's saying, like with the parents being so busy, like the parents are not in the house anymore, and now we're
Yeah.
counting on social media and things like YouTube. And I mean,
They're
even when I was a
watching.
kid or when we were kids, it was cable TV, right? Everybody had cable TV, and we would sit in front of the TV. I mean, I'm
Not as much though. Like we would be outside.
yeah.
Outside was like
Times
Like in
started
my
to change in our generation for sure.
in my
I
opinion,
remember when the computer came.
that's fair, but
Right.
like in my opinion, the ethical decision making in situations of conflict, you know, our morals are affected by the framework that is set aside, and it's monkey see, monkey kind of do, right? And if we don't have a fundamental like structure of what is right and wrong, if we're always bending those lines of
Yeah.
good and bad, we see news articles, we see police officers in the street. They'll discriminate against one, but they won't discriminate against another, right? Like,
They're not.
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
one group of people are bad for doing, say,
It's
protesting,
causing the divide. It's causing.
but another group of people protesting in the same delightful manner,
It's
they're
okay.
bad. So are we setting out that framework? The same with when we watch television, right? What
It's
vision is it selling you? The video games, the structures, the fundamental in school. Look at the anti-bullying at school. Does it really protect the victim?
it doesn't. They don't. From my experience, my son got bullied a lot. They're not even around when these kids get bullied half the time, so
Yep.
they don't know on recess or, you know, in the bathrooms or like they're not around and they're not. I'm not bashing teachers at all, but they're not equipped to deal with a lot
Yep.
of issues that these kids have these days, you know?
Absolutely.
And they don't have enough time. Like, I don't know if it's time or what, but
So, like, would that correlate with the conflict resolution of moral code
yeah,
of like right and wrong again,
they
right?
don't
Like
have a
the
base.
resolve disputes, encounter empathy. How do we get that empathy back into our society again?
I
Well,
think I think it starts with a mutual respect. Like
as young,
I find like as Heidi was saying again, like when it comes to like respecting your elders, that's lacking. But a respect from the elders to the younger generation is 100% lacking as well. And I think we have to look at it from both sides. And a lot of people are only seeing it from their perspective. They're not open-minded enough to see it from another perspective.
they're not
And
taking
I
time.
I think that
Yeah,
that's a lot of issue is that people just like, I mean, I hate to say it, but like somebody once said that we experience things differently. And it's true. We can absolutely experience the exact same thing and see it entirely differently.
So, like humility, right? Like that, like the opposite of humility would be excessive pride. So, humility meaning modest to low view of self importance. Their ego gets checked. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
are we holding our own self to that accountability within our
yeah.
society? Like, is it a
Absolutely.
limitation of weakness and valuing, like valuing? Sorry,
That's the
of
problem,
other
though. People's ego.
contribution.
This
That's
ego is
probably
getting
moon.
built up to a standard. Like you should have an ego, right? And that's why there's no
Yeah.
respect and no humility, and they don't respect elders because it's all about their own pride.
Yes.
And that's not good.
Well, that's where the seven teachings come into play. I feel like the humility is often associated with a lack of one's arrogance or like a willingness to learn and be assertive
I
and this like
feel
sense
like
of superiority that does not harm but does good.
it's hard to teach, well, like they say, it's hard to teach a dog new tricks, right? So if kids are coming up and they're getting indoctrinated the way they do in the schools, it's hard to teach them why you should
Yeah.
be kind or respect your elder or whatever. Because
Yeah.
at that point, they're even not respecting the parent.
Well, I mean, the parents don't have opportunity to build a bond with their children because they're separated from them for, 8 to 10 hours per day. They don't have an opportunity to even bond with their own partner because they're working two separate jobs, sometimes two separate shifts. They very rarely spend any time together. Some people don't even sleep in the same bed at night because they are on entirely different sleep schedules. So, I mean, even just the bonds that were supposed to be built within that family unit is just they're broken. They're not able to be established, and then the kids lose their connection with their mom or their dad because they're out of the house all the time. And like, how are we supposed to teach our kids morals and values if we don't have opportunity to sit with them and have a family dinner?
Because you're so exhausted by the end of the day.
You're
bringing everything home with you. Yep, exactly.
And the kids on the Xbox or
So would you
in his room.
would you say it's like a shared expectation for how people should behave, fostering mutual respect for one another and trust,
Like,
and learning how to do conflicts, like resolution of the uncertainty of morals that offer it?
I kind of feel like that's just a given. If you don't know how to act right, then there's
But if we're
missing
I'm
something.
wondering, like, where are children, especially children and youth, supposed to learn any of these positive values when a lot of things, like, I mean, even if you look at religion focuses on what you should not do and how you should not behave with these 7 deadly sins. But
Yeah.
if you look contrastingly at the 7 grandfather teaching, all of those are like a contrast to the sins. So I think a shift that can be used is to focus more on the positive things and how we should behave rather than focus on the negatives and how we should not behave or what we should avoid behaving like.
Things that morally you just don't do, right? Religion is a man-made structure.
Yeah.
Like people have to know right from wrong. The 7 is like a guideline, you know what I mean? It is like you shouldn't do those things, but I don't know where it's going wrong. Especially
I think when you focus on the negative. So for example, instead of focusing on, like, let's say humility, for example, instead of focusing on humility, people are focusing on not being too prideful. Now, the thing is pride is not a terrible thing. Pride gets to become such an ugly thing when an ego gets in the way. When you're no longer modest, when you are egotistically prideful, that's when it gets in the way. But if you have a pride, you can have a pride in yourself and a pride in your, in your nation, or, be proud of your children. Pride is beautiful. But when you start boasting and you think that you're better than someone because of whatever it is you're proud of, that's when we get into a negative state. But if you remind yourself to be honest and be humble and be love instead of, envy or whatever, then you can live a more positive life because you're looking at the positive rather than looking at the negative. But that's a hard thing for some people to do, right? It's really hard to shift your focus to the positive when you've been thinking negative for so long.
Yeah.
But that's perspective, right? And each one of us all have different perspectives and our opinions, especially today as we share it, right? Like, as for the religion aspect, right? I'm Christian. So, like, I have a different outlook on it. No. I have a different outlook, right? But it all comes back down to the fundamental is how do we reflect it back into our daily life? Because you want to see a change, you be the change. That has always been inserted in. That has always been something that has been referenced over and over and over again. But how do we actually take foot and action towards the 7 teachings, right?
The change is with us. It's not anyone else. You can't change anyone else. You can't tell anyone else what to do. I feel like you surround yourself with people who have the same kind of base, the same morals and you could have a different outlook. That's the beauty of life.
Yeah, that's the beauty of humanity. Yeah.
Exactly.
But that's why I have questions, and you should too.
And you know what? You start acting right, and then people will follow, right?
Absolutely.
Same online.
All it takes is one. All it
That's
takes
it.
is one person to do the right thing, and then other people follow suit.
And you
And
can't win
I
with
mean, the
that.
more you surround yourself, with people who are more on the same moral path as
Supportive.
you, the more positive your outlook will become, because those people have a higher,
And they want you to do
these
good.
people are on the same level as you.
They want you to do good. They want to see you succeed. And then that brings them up.
Yes.
It does. Like, that's what people don't get. You don't put someone down. That's not going to make you feel better.
And
For what it does.
sharing your wisdom, I think is like, that's another one of the grandfather teachings, is wisdom. And I think sharing your wisdom and being able to be humble within that knowledge and understanding and your perspective, I think it's really beneficial to like focus on how beautiful things can be in your life, or whether it's your daily life or your work life or your personal home life, your relationships. If you share your knowledge, understanding, and all of those other things with the people in your life in a positive way rather than in a negative way, once again, more positive outlook, more positive life.
The more you help someone, you might not even know you're helping someone. And just by you doing that for someone else is so much better for yourself and the world, you know?
Absolutely.
Taking, being greedy, and like, that's just not getting you anywhere.
Yeah. Enough of that in the world.
Oof, do we ever?
We talked about respect. Respect is great in theory, but it takes serious courage to actually live it out. Courage is like standing up for yourself when every single person is judging you. And I mean, I know I have experienced that in the last few years, but I digress. Telling the truth when it's not what people want to hear is also very courageous. And let's just touch on bravery and courage being two very different things. Bravery is going and doing something when you're not scared, and courage is doing something even though you're fucking horrified. You're still going to go and do it. So, when was the last time that you had to pull out your big girl pants? Why did I write that? Pull up your big girl pants, okay, and do something scary. So, like, for example, I don't know what it was like for you guys, but I had, when I left my kid's dad, that was the scariest fucking thing I've ever done in my whole life. I knew that I was facing homelessness. I was looking at fucking being totally by myself with two kids. That at the time they were 4 and 2.5, and it was horrifying, but I still did it. And that made me, like, I felt so empowered in that moment when I finally made the decision to step out of that comfort zone and be courageous for myself and for my littles. Like, that was definitely the last time that, or the first time I should say, that I really felt brave. I was like, I can do this. That was my empowering moment, and it only took me 30 years to get there.
But how long does it take you to do it? To like, okay, I'm leaving.
5 years.
That's what yeah. It takes a lot.
It does.
It could take a lot to build up.
Well, on that note, do you think that courage is something that you're born with, or do you think that that's something that you have to build?
You have to build it.
I'm the opposite. I think some are born with it and some aren't. I think sometimes it takes other people to do the right thing when no one's looking, for everybody to do the right thing when nobody's looking.
I think you're right.
Setting,
When you're doing
setting emotion forward sometimes is what it is. It's like singing a song in the middle of a crowd of people. All it takes is one person and another to join, and it becomes an anthem.
I feel like, especially for kids, they have that one kid that's like, I'm gonna go, if whatever they're doing in sports or whatever, and then they just follow.
Some are built and natural leaders, and that's what a natural leader is. And some people aren't, and that's okay. But the thing is, we all learn differently. Our brains all function differently. We all absorb information differently. We all roll forward differently.
We all have different talents,
Yes.
and
Yes.
you know,
Like my ability to run my fucking mouth, it's the only exercise to be getting lately, but like that's an ability.
well, at least you don't use it, you lose it. So
That's right. All right, well, let's move on to love. The next one we want to talk about is love. So, not just the sappy, freaking rom-com kind, but love for yourself, love for other people, and love for the messy, messy situations that get thrown at you in life. So, real talk, how do you love yourself when it feels like the world is totally against you?
So, like, generally, you have to remind yourself. You wake up every morning, you put your feet on the ground, you stick one leg in after another into the pants, and you move forward. Sunshine, exercise mostly. I drink a lot of water, take vitamins. I like someone that suffers from depression, and I self-regulate, not on medication. I like sugar. Like, that's a pick me up. It's a downfall too, right? Because that's also a poison. But I know go outside. But I have like a jar. I have a jar of affirmations.
I love Jen.
Oh, smart.
So, and it's a tool that I use from therapy. And it was one of the best things ever because when I'm having a shitty day, it's the small victory. Did I get out of bed? Did I shower today? Did I smile? What was my high of my day? What was the low? And I've implemented that in with my children. I always ask them the high and the low of the day. So
I love that.
I feel like love is just you can't just put it in one thing. And some people will think that love is like feeling love or the act of love or giving love or whatever, but I feel like the best kind of love is loving someone so much that they start to love themselves. And then it just blossoms from there. Giving love. Everyone's like always taking. Oh shit, I thought I was on mute.
No, ma'am.
And it's complicated. It's a sacrifice. It's messy. It's good. It's just not one thing. And it's just like love is like the beauty of the soul, I think.
That's
But I
beautiful.
feel like you love someone, if you can love someone so much that they start to love themselves, that's like the best kind of love you can get.
I love that. I love that. We already touched on humility, but do you have anything else you want to talk about with regard to humility there, Megs?
what is the meaning for you for humility? Accepting one's limitations and weaknesses while valuing others in their continuous state, which goes with love, a willingness to learn, accept, and be rounded together.
I like that. Humility is probably the only one that I don't really understand because I don't know the definition of humility. And since you were going to take the lead with it, I definitely did not look it up.
That's
But isn't
fair.
it like I think it's like being humble.
Exactly. It's like it
Kind
is.
of
It's
what
a
I have equated it.
it is a correlation of being humble.
Okay.
And I've been very humbled in my life, so humility is something I know well. And but reminding myself I'm not always the smartest person in the room, but my willingness to learn sometimes makes me the most adaptable.
Yeah, and it's not, you know, to be selfish and not want to learn and, or, you know, like you know it
Yeah.
all. And
But
you can't go through life like that.
But people don't know how to check their egos and then like in my opinion, especially us being on like the TikTok and and seeing other apps and how they function and how people get into each other's algorithms as well.
Mm.
It thrives off conflict. It thrives off vulgarity. It thrives off wow and shock factors, which gives people a false sense of security and gives them a false sense of this like ego that they think that they can like lead with. And that's like the excessive pride motion of this, right? Because they really value themselves over others when we're all the same and we're all
Y-
learning individuals and human beings. Not that they can't change and grow from that, but I find it's a very limited, like it's
But we're all like that at first. Like, oh my God, I got like this many likes and like people commenting, you know, makes you feel good. Of
oh, it
course.
makes me feel good. My ego is
But
through the roof,
I
but
didn't
like
get,
I'm super humble. I'm an asshat with a
that's what I
phone.
mean though. You know how to be humble. You didn't let that get to your ego. And some people, not gonna name names, but you
Oh,
know.
listen, I had chime bells going off. I was clicking my heels. I was like a
Oh
me.
no. Little
Yeah,
pep in your
no.
step.
Don't worry. I was humbled real quickly by a lot, like real
Well, that's
quick, and I'm
good
like,
though.
it's fair, fair.
Good
But
morning.
it's to feel good. It's good to, you know, like people want to see you comment and stuff. It's good, but you gotta you gotta be able to come back down,
I
which some people don't.
Yeah, I just don't like other people feeling like shit and like
I
being
don't either.
excluded because somebody's like, "Oh, I'm the cool kid of the club." No, you're not. No, you're not. And
No.
and like I think that goes back to like that pack mentality that humans really do have, right? Like even in high school, we all tend to like group towards others and we got
Of course.
grouped into, right? And especially on your political view, like 'cause obviously we're all
Oh,
from political TikTok. So we were locked in with everybody's views, but it turns out all of us are quite different individually and how we actually structure our well-being of others and how we
yes.
like fundamentally move and maneuver through different like obstacles. And obviously we've all had different obstacles. We've all had different people interact with us and how we react and how we don't and how we should have responded. And we all have to bring that back, and we're all guilty of the pride and the ego and and then one day
And
we're
popping
like,
off at the mouth every once in a while.
Listen, you don't have to pop off if you just act right, you know?
but like that's the thing, right? Like and
Listen,
I think that it all
Megs
goes
has
together.
said, as Megs
But
has said before, I'm from the hood. I do not know how to act.
yeah, I'm
See?
poor. I don't know how to act. I'm
We're the
learning.
same
I'm learning.
I was in the Navy. Okay, it's not my fault I have a
There
mouth
you
like
go.
a sailor. And people are offended. I get it. There's a lot of people that are like,
But like,
look down at that, but
but for the
Yeah.
record though, like you cussing, isn't that a them problem? Because they could scroll, especially if we're talking about like a social media app where you're cussing, they don't
Right.
have to listen to you.
but like today,
That's a
I think
choice.
well, it's not really because I'm kind of loud when I do it. But
So that
I
sounds like it sounds like you guys are saying that social media makes it a little tougher for people to remain humble.
yeah, but
It's
With
a
I'm
the
not
learning
running
curve.
sense
down.
of grandeur that they receive with all of these likes.
I'm not going to the superstore and being like, yeah, popping off people. Like
Like,
that's not
don't
what
you
I
know who
do.
I am? No.
That's not what I would ever do. But people bring out a side of you that.
But you're responsible for your reaction. And I
Yeah,
think
but I
that's
would do
something
that
we
in
have to
person.
normalize, that we are
Yeah.
responsible for our reaction, regardless if we think it is self-righteous or deserving. You know, we
Yeah.
really do, because we're projecting something at that tap of anger. And
Yeah.
sometimes we're like, I feel justified. But once again, in that statement, I feel justified.
Yeah.
Listen, man,
That
you're gonna be proud of me. There's a shift today, and I think I'm on a new
hashtag good
wave.
choices, Heidi. I don't care if we're going on podcast or
No,
not.
I think it's gonna
Hashtag
stick
good
this time.
choices.
I think it's gonna stick
Listen,
this time.
this just moves us right into our next talking point, which is wisdom.
Oh,
Okay. So, like, wisdom. I'll just start with the questions on this one. What do you think the difference between being smart and being wise is? In your opinion, from your perspective.
Young enough
okay.
to
I
know
think
better, dumb enough not to care.
smart
Okay.
is like you are, right? You know what it is. Wisdom is like or no, scrap that. Um, you got to be willing to learn to become wise, right? Because you can't get anywhere with just your opinion and stuff. So I think, yeah, some people can be smart just naturally. That wasn't me. But to be wise, you have to be able to listen and like take criticisms and like watch people, because you can't get to be to have that wisdom without it. Help
So
from
it's
others.
like, it sounds like your opinion of it is the same as mine. You're born with smarts, but you have to earn your wisdom.
There you go.
Well, we're all born with
That's what I
some
meant.
kind of knowledge.
That's what I meant.
That was a better choice.
Now, do you think that wisdom comes from more from your mistakes or more from your successes?
Mistakes, 1,010% mistakes, because you can never, like,
Oh,
sometimes you're naturally good at something, but you don't know how you're going to handle it when you fail. And failing is everything, because you learn
yeah.
so much from it: how to structure, how to stand back up, how to dust it off, because you're going to fail again, you're going to fall again.
And you know what? They're not letting kids do that. They're not letting kids fail,
No,
because
they're not.
that's terrible. That
They're not
is
teaching them
awful.
how to fail, because
They're
that's
giving
like, and
everyone
I think that's such an important thing to learn, is how to fall down, because if you don't learn how to fall down, you never learn how to get back up. If you do not learn how to fail with a little bit of integrity, then you're never going to continue moving forward and pushing forward to trying new things or trying that again, because you're going to feel like a failure.
You'll be walked over.
Well,
Yeah.
not only
You
that,
know,
kids don't know how to cope. And the thing is, a lot of adults don't have coping mechanisms or healthy coping, like obviously drinking, coffee, smoking. Like, we
yeah, but
have different vices, but
Talking shit on
critical
the
thinking,
internet.
critical thinking, you know,
hence we're on fucking now doing podcasts talking about morals and integrity, and hopefully we'll learn something from all of you. And that
Listening,
is great.
listening and not judging.
Yes, we listen and we don't judge.
don't judge.
100%.
You know, making good choices. Who would have
Great
thought?
choices. But it does. But it's true though. Like, they don't give kids how to cope. So when they
No,
don't actually have a goal to set, so like if everybody wins a ribbon,
they do.
they, and that's the thing though. What do you have to achieve?
What's
What do
the
you have to work
motivation?
for? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. What is
Because
gonna
yeah, we gotta
drive
get it
you to
right
do
anyway.
that? Nothing, because everybody wins at the same time. Who's gonna study harder if you're
When
all getting a grade?
we had
Exactly.
to fight for that spot on the team, or
Yeah.
if you didn't do good in baseball, you were on the bench or you didn't make the team. Like
100%.
all of them were
100%.
making the
And
team.
sports teams are a great example, like baseball. And I like that because, well, obviously I like baseball.
And
So
it
that
gives you
there's that.
confidence. then it gives
It
them
gives you
Absolutely.
confidence. It gives you team motivation. It gives you all an ability to cheer each other on and comfort each other when you lose.
So they're
And you practice harder together to do better and find that weak link. They're not
born.
given that opportunity. And today, because they all win. But the truth
Yeah, but
is, in the real
born.
world, we ain't all winning, are we?
We just said like wisdom, courage. Like you learn so much from being on a team,
Yeah.
and then it's really sad that they're not allowing the kids to, you know, thrive.
1,000%.
They're all just going to be the same.
It's true.
Not my boy. Nope. I'm teaching him. He's a sweet boy.
Teaching him your moral.
Well, you have to, you know.
It's true.
You don't want a little a-hole running around.
That moves us into our next two, which are seemingly quite similar. Truth and honesty. And just for argument's sake, truth is about factual information. Honesty is about your character. So what do those two things with their differences and their similarities, what do you think is more important in in everyday life, being truthful and honest, or doing what people expect or think is right? Like, do you hold your morals or do you do what you're told? I always hold to my morals, and now I'm a domestic terrorist, but whatever.
You have to. I mean, it's hard, but then you're just going to be a pushover. And you won't have any truth because you won't even know who you are if you're just doing whatever everyone else wants to do.
You're doing yourself a disservice.
Build a backbone
But the truth
and stick
is,
with it.
everybody loves you when you let everything slide. But when you put boundaries in, when you set what your yeses are and your nos are, you become the most hated person, as we watch.
Yeah, you do. I know you do.
100%.
And sometimes going against the grain, it's everything. But the thing is, honesty is probably the most, right? The character of person. The character of a human will shine because it's action over words. Now, you may have a factual statement, but action over words trumps anything else because that shows the integrity and the guidance that you are going. Like, that is the way.
Yeah.
If people genuinely know that you are good, even when you fail or make a mistake, they know that you're going to get back up and you're going to adjust and you're going to keep going straight. But if you show a pattern of behavior of constant distrust and dishonesty, you no longer become relevant.
I've seen that pattern from a few people. It's not good.
No, it's really not.
And it's not hard to pick out.
I've noticed a lot, especially being on TikTok. People try to they try and put themselves in this position of being truthful by sharing facts about other information, but not holding true to their own honesty about themselves or who they are or any of that. So,
like, when you're getting in a group and getting to know the people like we all did or whatever, you go along to get along. Like, what do you stick with that group's truths? Or, like, how hard is it to let your own shine, kind of thing? You know what I mean?
to be honest with yourself about what's acceptable and what's not acceptable in the realm of friendship.
In a group setting. That's hard.
I think it is
hard.
I think it's about setting healthy boundaries and like understanding that like people are individual humans, and eventually you have to realize that your yeses and your nos have to count, right? Because that's how people become very, very just absolutely
Ooh.
disgusted with humans, or they become dishonest. And that is the truth. They become dishonest with each other because they don't want to be like, oh, I didn't like hypothetical Steven over here, and I didn't like hypothetical Linda. I didn't like what they said to me or how they treated somebody.
Friggin' Linda.
Hypothetical Linda.
No, but
Right?
boundaries, people don't like boundaries either, you know?
No, but you do become the most hated person. Say what you do, like say what you want,
Yeah.
but your words better match your action is what I'm trying to say. They
Be honest with what
they need
you
to
do.
match. They need to match. And if you're in a group of people, common sense should let you go from a false sense of loyalty. And this is where that mentality needs to stop. Because people are like, they live this lie where they watch all these movies and Joker. I'm going to use the Joker as an example because, like, in the Joker, there's a lot of quotes and everything about loyalties and, all these things. But there comes to a point where common sense should have got you out of something for a false sense of loyalty that you made up in your own head.
And loyalty, you could be loyal to someone, but they're not loyal to you.
And that's
right.
I think the most important thing we need to remember about loyalty is to be loyal to ourselves before anyone else. Because if you are disloyal to yourself, then everything else is lost.
You gotta have a center. You gotta have to have something that grounds you, right? And like we said before, people just come together, you know? So you gotta, be loyal to yourself because yourself matters. People be good to yourself and you will
Because
attract good.
you're never going to control anyone else around you. You're not going to control what they say. You're not going to control what they do. You're not going to control how they react. You're not going to control how they treat other people. The only thing you can control is yourself. You can either choose to react to these people, suffer the consequences to that, or you can choose to respond in a more positive way and deal with other people instead of going and dealing with that negative energy. Because that negative energy is just going to bring you down.
People, you've seen today how it affects people.
Oh
That
my
they just
God.
don't want other people to, why can't I don't understand why they're doing this, or
I don't understand why
why
people
can't
don't
we
just walk away.
you can't control anyone. Can't control any, and it sucks because they're shitty people. But
It's true.
walk away from those because they're gonna suck the energy out of you.
Yes.
No, 100%.
Take care of yourself.
And each other.
For sure. That's right. Well, this was fucking deep.
I
But
can't wait.
honestly, I feel like we've only really scratched the surface. These teachings hit differently when you actually take time to think about them, right? So before we wrap it up, let's just say which one of these teachings do you think like really hits you the hardest? For me, it's honesty. Honesty hits me the hardest because like I am honest to a fault. And that's a moral that I hold very, very, very high. That's very high on my values list is honesty and being true to oneself. I expect it from my children. I expect it from my friends. I expect it from my family. But most importantly, I expect it from myself.
Well, I'm like a caregiver that's just my nature, right? So love is very important to me, even though, sometimes I'm not very good showing it but that's just big. It's just big for me, so yeah.
Definitely humility, because I think that's what we're missing in our world is others compassion and empathy. We lack thereof, and we value objects over human, and that is problematic. So, like, definitely humility for me because I like people. I know, got a soft spot.
What?
Whoa,
You like people? Ugh.
what's wrong with you?
There in
Well,
general, I just need to know.
those are good traits to have, ladies.
Well, we don't have much time left. So, to everyone listening and watching, thank you. And here is your homework. Don't worry, it's not that bad. One of these teachings and try living it out this week and let us know how it goes. And remember, progress, not perfection. And without progress, without struggle, there could be no progress.
That's right.
I have a tattoo that says it and I still get it wrong.
You know what? We need like an end. We need like a.
Well, we also need to tell people before I shut this down that you guys need to send us in some questions so that we can respond to them on the panel, and we'll answer any crazy questions you have as long as they're not like totally disgusting and like really inappropriate. But even those we might answer. So
That email is like the Shameless Steph podcast.
yes, the email is shamelessstephdpodcast@gmail.com. And I'll post that in the description. It'll be available for everyone, and you can always comment on the videos. Send Heidi, Megs, myself, or Amanda, just like any direct messages, and we'll go from there. Thank you, ladies.
Awesome.
Megs is married, by the way, just in case anyone was wondering.
So happy for you, Meg.
Thank you.
Wednesday. It's Wednesday in 49 minutes here.
Oh, it's past my bedtime.
And it's 11:11.
Past my bedtime.
Make a wish.